NRPI. But we're going to begin with, this is the subject for tonight, which is, and you'll see ASSAP Training 2023, which is the year, obviously, and you'll see two levels, ASSAP Accredited Investigator and ASSAP Registered Investigator. And that will be made clear shortly. But but before we actually begin, I want to make a point of clarification, because let me just move that over so I can read the damn thing or see the screen properly. There we go. NRPI, the National Register of Professional Investigators, is a protected term, and so you will hear it in use from time to time, and it doesn't reflect the training or the outcome of the training, but because it's a protected term, it will be used periodically when referring to the overall investigation standards program, which includes the provision of investigator training, but also ensuring that ASSAP allocated cases, these are the cases that are dealt with by ASSAP or the ASSAP affiliated teams, are carried out in accordance with the guidelines and, of course, with the high standards that clients would expect to receive from us. This new revised training plan includes significant changes from the former NRPI training program, and these changes have been implemented to facilitate improved investigator training and ensure the delivery of a high standard of investigation practices. The scheme provides defined outcomes and also a recognition of training that's been undertaken, and also specifies the responsibilities of members who wish to participate in the training program and pass through it. But importantly, I was looking at the training program, and it has always been very heavily biased, and there will be a bias towards the investigation of ghosts, hauntings, spontaneous phenomena, rather than, but you know, I am mindful that ASSAP also looks at a broader range of phenomena, including UFOs, cryptozoology, you know, a raft of other phenomena, and that hadn't been properly addressed in the previous training programs. So I've included elements that move some way to address that deficiency. Generally speaking, a similar approach to all phenomena is required, but there are specific areas where there will be some variations. Now, as it said in the title, within the overall training program, the NRPI training program, individuals passing through the program will now become either an accredited investigator or a registered investigator. And of course, those who become registered must also, by default, be accredited. So you can't just jump straight to registered without, you know, sort of missing a stage. So you will have to go accredited and then registered. Okay, so accreditation and ASSAP Accredited Investigator, AAI. The course will consist of two parts, parts A and B, and will focus upon providing the basic skills necessary to undertake good quality examination of a case. It includes making simple observations, interview skills, and ethical considerations. And it will include a practice investigation. This will be a practice investigation of a spontaneous type phenomena, because that's what we can provide. And, you know, I was looking at Chinese weather balloons and whether we could have them floating past, and, you know, spray painting cats and dogs to see if we could, you know, satisfy that, or even sticking things onto toy submarines. But in the end, I thought, well, you know, the basic skill set is broadly the same. So there will be a practice investigation, which will allow participants to gain skills, refresh their skills in planning, coordination, and implementing a basic location investigation. So part A, as I said, it's two parts, A and B. Part A is a one-day training day. So down from the previous weekend, which will hopefully save people time, money, you know, mindful of cost of livings, etc. So it will start in the early mid-morning, and then it will run till around midnight with sufficient breaks, work breaks. So you won't be, you know, sort of, you won't be worked too hard. There will be an element of, dare I say, fun. So there'll be two sections on the training day. The first being theory-based lectures and exercises, which will be group and individual exercises throughout the day, including work break exercises where you can, you know, go off and do something whilst also having a break. There'll then be a pause, and then we will reset for the mentored practice investigation, which will take place at the location. So broadly unchanged from the previous format, except this will be one day, one evening, and you should all be free by about midnight to head for home or back to hotels or whatever you want to do, really. And there's just further details, single day, late through to late evening. And the intention is that we will hold two of these each year, and they will be at locations throughout the UK to try and give people the maximum opportunity to participate, you know, rather than all, you know, drag everybody from the north to the south, from the south to the north. We decided it would be better to hold them at diverse locations, sort of scatter them around the country to increase the opportunities for members to attend, and of course reduce the associated cost, you know, particularly the traveling component. Part B, which will follow within a period of 2 weeks following the actual training day, each participant will be required to submit a short written report. And when I say short, I mean no more than 1,000 words, based upon the practice investigation. And it will also give them practice using the report writing guide. The report will be expected to include a description of the planning and the methods that were used by the individuals, and also include reasons for any decisions that were taken. And it will be submitted. If it fails to reach the required degree of competency, we'll put in some additional training measures and support, and then there will be a second opportunity to resubmit that report. Now, inevitably, there are members who wish to gain accreditation or participate in the training, but for various reasons won't be able to attend the training days. Now, throughout 2023, we won't be able to get this rolled out fully, but to facilitate this, we are working on developing remote access learning program, which will use recordings of the training day and the delivered training course with additional online exercises and assessment of individuals' practical skills. And we aim to get those underway in early 2024. So again, maximizing opportunities for people who live, you know, at distance overseas. But initially we've got quite a backlog, and it's the online side of things hasn't yet commenced. So realistically, that will be 2024. Let's move on to the new, the recognition of training. So upon successfully completing the 2 parts of the AAI training, each participant will receive a certificate of accreditation, recognizing them as having undergone the training course, stating that they have met the basic competency requirements considered necessary to become an investigator. And the certificate will also contain an expiry date after which it must be renewed. You will be required to reaccredit within 5 years of your last or most recent accreditation by means of participating in an additional or a further AAI training course. That's just because things do change, you know, new methods come along, the world changes. I mean, if we went back to Enfield and to investigate the Enfield case today, 2 young girls in their bedroom, it would be a very different type of investigation than Guy and Morris were able to undertake. So every 5 years, you will be expected to undergo refresher training at AAI level. Now, what can an accredited investigator do? Well, they will be able to be included as a member of an ASSAP team, examining cases that come in via ASSAP and are allocated via the ASSAP investigation officer, formerly the NRPI officer, currently is Caroline. However, an accredited investigator will not be permitted to take charge of or have overall responsibility for an ASSAP assigned case. So they will become members of the team, but not they won't be able to take direct responsibility for the investigation and liaison with the client. I've got to point out that inclusion within any investigation team is never guaranteed and is always at the discretion of both the lead investigator and the investigation officer, because they, prior to allocating the case, will also consider the overall requirements of that particular case. Now, these participation restrictions only do apply to those cases which are assigned by ASSAP. So whatever you want to do as an individual or as a member of your own team, we have no role in that at all. These restrictions on levels of responsibility only apply to the ASSAP allocated cases coming from the ASSAP investigation officer. So let's move on to the registered investigator. I want to keep the flow going because I want to make as much time for questions at the end. This course consists of 3 parts and focuses upon those additional skills necessary to carry out and to manage a good quality examination of a case. This includes client liaison skills, making detailed observations, team and case management, and a greater recognition of ethical considerations. This will consist of a 2-day training course, so it will take place over a weekend. It will deal with theory and group exercises and also contain a mentored practice investigation. And the intention is to hold up to 2 training weekends each year, again at diverse locations. Day 1 will consist of a review of the accreditation training and will also introduce the role and use of equipment for making observations and measurements. The equipment will also be introduced further during the practice investigation on the first evening. Day 2 will look at in more detail at case ethics and client vulnerabilities, including techniques to identify and respond to such vulnerabilities. And it will also consider methods for effective team management, evaluating the data that's been gathered and acquired during equipment-supported parts of the investigation. Part B of the training follows the sort of role of AAI. Within 2 weeks, you will be expected to submit a detailed written report of around 2,000 words using the report writing guide. And this will be expected to include describe the planning and implementation of the practice investigation, including a more detailed evaluation of the methods that you used and any equipment that was used, together with the reasons for each of your decisions. It should also contain an evaluation of any data that was obtained by use of the equipment, if you make any measurements. That report, once completed, will be submitted. Again, if it fails to reach the required degree of competency, the trainee will be supported and given one further opportunity to resubmit their report. And part C, within 4 weeks, the participant will be required to complete an online training module, which is being written now, that will consider a number of scenarios drawn from real life or constructed from real life cases in order to test the ethical awareness and also the technical knowledge pertaining to making measurements and observations. That will be assessed and determined if it's reached the required level, and again, additional support and second opportunity, further opportunity to take and pass part C will be made available. Let's have a look at once you are a registered investigator, what this means. Upon successful completion of the training, you will be eligible for entry onto the ASSAP Register of Investigators, and you will receive a card identifying you as a registered investigator. The card will have an expiry date, which will be 30 months. Now it's actually 2 years plus a 6-month grace period to allow for the courses moving, the dates of the courses and such. So you've got an adequate period of time to get yourself re-registered every 2.5 years. You are expected to undertake biannual re-registration training at this level in order to maintain your competency and also to continue to develop your skills. This can take the form of participation in a ARI training event, or eventually, again commencing 24-25, by means of online modules and assessments. You can see from the red banner that in order to ensure that the ASSAP assigned teams of investigators meet the standards that are expected, that in some circumstances, individual investigators may be required to undertake a DBS enhanced level check. That doesn't normally apply, but in some circumstances it may. And I understand that any costs associated with that will be met by ASSAP. But that provision exists, and it is something that you may have to be aware of if you are asked to become a lead investigator at this level. You can be, once you are a registered investigator, you will be permitted to act as the lead investigator and take a day-to-day responsibility and overall charge of an ASSAP allocated case. This includes directing and coordinating all aspects of the assigned investigation, including client liaison, and of course, you will be responsible for writing the final investigation report. There is a kind of caveat here: the assignment of the lead investigator and the allocation of cases will continue to be the responsibility of the ASSAP investigation officer, who will consider the needs of the client and the requirements of the case. Team members for ASSAP assigned cases will normally comprise of the AAI, ASSAP accredited investigators, and selection of team members will ordinarily be done in consultation between the assigned lead investigator and ASSAP's investigation officer. Right, how are we going to achieve this? Because I am mindful that we have a number of people who are NRPI investigators. So that we can most effectively roll out the new training plan, the first ARI training weekend won't commence until 2024, early next year, with a second one to follow later. So until that time, all current NRPI accredited investigators, so if you're already on the NRPI register, nothing will change for you. Your status quo will continue until the ARI courses commence. Following commencement of the course, all existing NRPI investigators will then be required to undertake the ARI training course within 18 months. And the countdown clock will commence from the date of the first ARI course. So as we'll be announcing that 6 months or 5 or 6 months beforehand, it will be 18 months from the date of holding that course. So in effect, giving additional period of notice there, so that the ARI or switch over between NRPI investigators and ARI investigators will be as smooth as possible and will inconvenience people as little as possible. We have some future plans too. During the next 2 years, we aim to provide every member who requests it an opportunity to participate in training at both levels, accreditation and registration. But so that we can most effectively do this, it's necessary to focus upon providing the AAI and ARI training separately during the first sort of startup year, 23 and 24. The intention and hope is that from 25, this will then change to provide combined ARI, AAI training courses so that we can actually host more of them, and which are also necessary to ensure that there are sufficient opportunities for members to undertake the required periodic requalification. So again, giving people the maximum number of opportunities that we can once we've dealt with the huge, enormous backlog of people queuing up waiting for training because of the period of whatever the word is. Moving forward, in cooperation with the Education Office, Education Officer, it's intended that some parts of the AAI and ARI training will also become accessible by means of online training. I said that earlier, and that additional training resource will be available by 2025 because it doesn't exist yet. And there is work shortly to commence on making that a reality. Now, the second thrust of the training was maintaining the high standards of both investigation practice and ethics that people expect from an organization such as this. So it's important that we introduce regular auditing of the investigations that are carried out on our behalf. This will normally be the shared responsibility of the investigation officer and the training officer. Periodically, though, we might invite other ASSAP officers to become involved. Auditing will have 3 components. These, because auditing our investigators allows us a method to ensure that the assigned investigators and their teams are undertaking the cases to the best of their ability, and of course, to the highest possible standards. Thinking Kenny Everett there. It also allows the investigators to call upon additional assistance, advice, and support in any cases where they feel it might be necessary or where additional resources may be required. So here are the 3 levels. Routine auditing, and this will be undertaken for every case following the submission of the completed investigation report. So that the investigation officer and the training officer will have a look through the report, make sure it is up to the required standards. Random auditing, this will be by means of a request, normally by the investigation officer, for all case material or current. This will apply to an ongoing case. Out of the blue, you might get a request for all case material to be submitted. This gives us the opportunity to sort of drop in on a case and just take a look to make sure that the standards are being met. The third one is requested audit, and this can be instigated by the lead investigator, who might think that they need a little bit more help or guidance, and they can refer their investigation to the investigation officer or training officer to review it, to have oversight of it, and to make any necessary suggestions or amendments, additions, put in additional resources. So auditing is an important step to maintaining standards. But as we finish, I just want to look quickly at the role of the investigator, and this really applies in irrespective of the phenomena that is being reported or examined. They have to manage the investigation, of course, manage the team, manage witnesses, and manage information. They have to investigate the case. And ASSAP does this by using an evidence-led whatever that word is, methodical approach. And the investigators consider natural and neurophysiological considerations. These are each in turn, trying to understand what may plausibly be worthwhile pursuing further, and avoiding non-testable notions and suggestions. Let's stick to the science because we are ASSAP. The investigator's role is also to gather evidence and data. This comes from witnesses, from instrumentation, and it needs to be carefully gathered and arranged, and that includes chronologically and time indexed, and includes information that doesn't support ideas or beliefs. So it might be that it's going against what, a direction you think it's going in, but the data is still important. Even if you think it's a poltergeist and it turns out to be something else, all information is important. Just because you don't consider it worthwhile, or it's not going in the way that you want, you don't disregard the information that you're gathering. And we evaluate the case, and we are mindful of the ethics. So we carefully review and consider every possibility, even if it doesn't conform to our expectations or even those of the client. And ethically, we have a duty of care that we pick up from the moment we take charge of the case, and that we should never do anything that is likely to cause harm to the client. And the investigator must be prepared to step away or call a halt to the investigation if it is considered that they are doing harm, or harm is being caused. This can be mental harm, physical harm, or even just a great deal of disruption. And this duty of care also means that you should also always consider the needs of the client ahead of any personal considerations you may have. It's a great acronym, which, if you have trouble remembering the role of the investigator, we've got this handy acronym, which is nice and easy to remember. So I'm going to stop sharing and throw it open to questions, and just remind CJ that he owes me £5. And I shall turn that off, stop sharing, and put the camera on. And let's go for questions. Does somebody want to handle the questions?
Yeah, that's me. Thanks, Steve. Thank you very much for going through that. It's very informative. I hope that we've got a lot of people now that want to sign up with us. Be great to have you on board and see you as a team member working for us. Just give me 2 seconds, because as soon as you stop sharing the screen, all my questions disappear and then I have to go and find it again. So at the beginning, you've got people saying hi and all that good stuff. Right, so the first question comes from Elaine Curtis. Do you have to be AAI accredited before you can attend the ARI weekend?
At the moment, yes. You have to be accredited before you can be registered. From 2025, as I say, the plan is that you can go through the entire package in one weekend, but that's not possible yet.
Rachel Hayward, good evening, Rachel. I hope you're keeping well. Will GDPR training be given as part of the course?
GDPR will be included in the ethics for the ARI course.
Did you have an expansion on that, Rachel? Did you want to ask something else? Is Rachel frozen?
The reason for the reason for it being ARI, not AAI, is that the ARI.
No, it's. I'm just kind of presuming that will be made. I didn't catch that. Sorry.
The reports are the responsibility of the ARI investigator, the lead investigators. So GDPR is more important for them, so it's included there, but it is touched upon in the AAI training, but not to any great extent, because it is the responsibility of the lead investigator.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I would expect nothing less. Thank you. Good evening, Caroline.
You're right, sweetheart. Nice to see you here. The next question is from Kieran Farrell. Thank you. Very, very clear outline of the new ASSAP training, Steve. I have a couple of questions. Will the training encompass the drawing up of floor plans and basic building knowledge, such as plumbing and electrics, EMF surveys, and the use of equipment? He asks that, I think, because we've just done that on a recent case together, haven't we, Kieran?
The quick and short answer, so that we can get a lot of questions in, is yes, absolutely.
Oh, good. Well, we have, but it's sort of a bit confidential, so we can't really talk about it. But yes, we were doing that, and we had some considerable difficulty sorting out some of the business about EMF and the devices such as tumble dryers, which can cause high readings. And
that's why we have random auditing.
Just bear with me one moment while I let somebody in. Steve, hold on. There we go. Kieran's also said he wanted to talk about the role of relevance of historical research related to the building and persons who have lived in the potentially haunted house previously.
Right. Yes, it's included, but also yes, it's definitely included. However, there is a common mistake made by many investigators in that they tend to focus too much on the history of a location. So whilst it is important to gain an understanding of the location that you are visiting, it can also mislead the investigator into making assumptions or based upon the history. So the history is hugely important, but it's got to be done in context, and that's included within the training.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Steve. That's what I wanted to check.
We don't all end up with Anne Boleyns, monks, no, Christ knows what else, just because there was a convent there 500 years ago, which is...
That's the sort of thing, yeah, sorry.
What happens, people see the history and make an automatic assumption that that historical figure who once visited must be the ghost.
Yeah.
So it can be, a bit of a double-edged sword, and that's included in the training.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Corinne Besson, if you're here, can you unmute yourself a minute, please? She says, great talk. Do you have any dates for Bristol and Bath area? There is a couple of hotels that I have got that could potentially give us that occupation over the weekend for the courses to go on. But Corinne, are you here still?
Yes.
So if you have a suitable place that you know has a conference room and does come with a paranormal activity that could be researched, if you want to put it forward for yourself for the Bristol Bath area, then if you let Norrie Miles know, she can contact the hotel or the place and see if they would mind taking that on for an event coordination area for you.
We used to use Arness Manor.
That's what I was going to say, Norrie.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's
Route
what we used.
170.
Yeah, we've used that quite a few times for training. It's a great location.
Right.
Must be good for me too. I can see it from here. It'd be great.
Well,
Suits me.
I can give the same information that I gave to Caroline,
It's
which is the first official date is in June and will go live now, today, tomorrow. Anyway, it's done and it will go live very shortly.
Not until we've booked yet.
But if
Busy booking.
if there are the training can be run, it's ready to go. So if there are people with suggestions and sufficient demand, we can, to try and work through this backlog, particularly this first 2 years. I'm more than happy to consider, doing additional training days at AAI training days.
Steve, just to let you know, we've got people who are booking at the moment. As I'm sitting here,
That's my group. That's
Cool.
my group. We're
Yeah,
trying to get on, get booked, but we're
Right.
having
All
problems
those-
with PayPal.
All those that are on the list already that have been there anything up to 3 years
Mhm.
have been given the link to book today.
fantastic,
Right.
brilliant.
Because obviously they've been waiting a long time. So those that are on the list already will have a link tonight. By the end of the evening, we'll have.
Brilliant.
the
Well
link
done,
to
Norrie.
book.
Well, as I say, just to emphasize that we have one booked, we have another one planned, but I'm open to, if people want to say, here is the location, here is the demand in a particular area, then we can look at putting on additional AAI training days throughout 2023 to try and clear some of this backlog that's built up. I think that's important. I should also stress that on the training days themselves, we will be providing the course notes. You won't have to write anything by way of course notes. They'll all be provided, packaged up with the cost of the course itself. So just to make life even easier for people.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, which I can answer, I think, anyway, Jane Giroux, if you've already got an enhanced DBS, would you mean that you wouldn't need to have another one for ASSAP? As far as I'm aware, being an ex-cop, you do have to have DBS for everybody who requires it, for each individual organisation. I think that's really to make sure that you've not been bad in between having the last one and now.
That's right.
Yeah, so are you under the same agreement, Steve?
Yeah.
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 I mean,
As far as I know, sorry, can I chip in a sec? If you've got the online version of the DBS, you only need the one because they can
okay.
check it elsewhere. But if the paper version, yeah, you need a separate one for each organisation. So it depends. They're going online now. Go online, you're okay.
Well, just get this into perspective. There are. It's not going to happen very often, and we can deal with the specifics of the enhanced DBS when necessary. But we have the necessary expertise throughout the group, so that when we come to that river, we have a bridge across. So we don't need to worry about it. I included mention that it may be a requirement occasionally. I don't foresee that it's going to be something that is going to trouble us a great deal. but there is that sort of acknowledgement that it may become necessary. And I'm aware that we have people with the necessary expertise to be able to process it.
Thank you.
Can I there is a point here, please, which is that with DBS checks, the check would be carried out on the individual a lot of the time by the individual, but information would go to the organisation. So who would determine if there is something in somebody's background that might not be 100%, as that would be an ASSAP decision?
I'm not at liberty to understand the outcome of that answer, I'm afraid. That would have to go.
Somebody puts themselves forward for a check.
Steve,
they get
you need to
checked
unmute
out.
yourself. Steve, you've muted.
I didn't mute. That will be a decision for the executive, because they are the only people empowered within ASSAP to make those decisions. So ultimately, that will be for the executive to deal with.
Is there a named person in the executive for this?
I'm sure that that will be arranged in due course.
Okay, thank you.
The next executive meeting, in fact.
Yeah, that will happen on the next exec meeting. We'll bring that up. Okay.
Thanks.
So Stella, grab a pen and a piece of paper, because Norrie is going to put her email address in the comments. It's going to be, if you've got an interest, you can either send it to Norrie at events@assap.ac.uk. So you can send it to her there, or if you want any more information, you can send it to me at the nrpi@assap.ac.uk, and I'll forward the interest on. So whichever one that you can get through to. I would get your name in quick, because we're expecting to have a rush on people with the training. I hope that's...
Yeah, Norrie and I have also spoken about numbers, and we're pushing the numbers to the maximum as well to try and clear this backlog.
Yeah, it's 30 per class for the first one, isn't it?
Was it 30 or 40, Norrie?
I think we decided 40 in the end, but we've got about 36 already of show, that I've got to contact this evening.
Okay,
I think
brilliant.
40 realistically, because it's a large venue that we're going to be using. So
yeah. So Rachel, that's answered your next question. Lovely.
This is on trying to provide the opportunity to as many people as quickly as is practically possible.
Okay. Greg, that's answered your question as well. Thumbs up. Are you happy with that one? Brilliant. But Greg, you don't need to do it again, do you?
Yes, happy to start from the scratch. We've been out of it for a while, so may as well start from the scratch.
Okay, that's personal choice. It'll be lovely to see you at the training weekend, both of you. I don't know if you're on the first one or if you're going to be on the next ones coming up.
Well, whenever available it comes around, to be honest. We're happy to start.
Do you want me to put you on the list, Greg, and I'll email you tonight?
Yeah, I just messaged you, Norrie.
Okay, brilliant. Well done. Thank you, Greg.
Can I just jump in as well and suggest that, as there is no change in status for the NRPI investigators, we're not changing anything. Your status quo is protected, and your level of qualification recognition is protected. So for this year, to try and clear the backlog of people who haven't had any training at all, I would make a personal request that if you have already undergone training, that you sit tight and wait for 24 and the ARI training rollout, rather than because I'd rather we got through the number of people who have never had any training.
Okay.
So you are protected, Greg. If you've ever done, and to everybody else that's done the NRPI training courses in the past and are on the register at the present time, your status is completely unaffected and is protected. But if you could sit back for
yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
to try and give us the opportunity of getting, you know, the backlog of those who've never had training.
With regards to training, Steve, for South Wales and West Wales, like as you know, we could always try the castle.
Yeah, and as I said before, if groups or individuals want to suggest locations and there is sufficient demand, I'm more than happy to put on additional training days around the UK to try and.
I was just listening when they said there's new members down this way that
you know, if we can drum up enough business, then you know, West Wales, Midlands, wherever, I'm more than happy to increase the number of training days, AAI training days, because I'm very keen on trying to get this backlog cleared.
Fair enough. Yeah, we'll hold off. It's not a problem.
Tony Percy says, once training's completed, how many cases does ASSAP actually get to investigate annually? Well, Tony, that is a good question, well phrased. So you, as a trained NRPI investigator, will be expected to perhaps maybe try and come up with some investigations of your own. My team get too many to deal with. We're getting about 2 a week. I farm mine off. Corinne, she's been working with an NRPI trained lady called Sarah, who's my deputy. They get a few of my cases. I've given some to Liverpool. I've given some to oh crikey, all over the place. And I've got one for Cornwall coming. That's going to be, hopefully someone can take that on as well. So you will be expected to put some of your own cases through and do the paperwork for that if you've got a group yourself. Also, once you're NRPI, we would like to think that you would be advertising us to your local groups so that people know where to come and who it is that we are and what we do. So we'll be expecting you to be our advocates as well. We'll go through that obviously with the training with Steve and Norrie and myself if I'm involved with that side of it, and we'll help you to put out there what it is that we need members of the public to look for when looking for case assessors. I hope that that's answered it. Steve, have you got anything else to say on that one?
No, because the allocation of cases is your job, the investigations officer.
Yeah.
I've just seen a question from Elaine Curtis saying Wales will be a perfect location for anyone travelling from Ireland. Whilst I was over there recently, I was asked about training courses in Ireland, and I don't see any difficulties in doing that if the demand is high enough. So
the only thing that you'll need to check with CJ is that because the charity is only England and Wales for ASSAP, I don't know if it will cover Scotland and Ireland.
I'm sure rules are meant to be broken. If there's sufficient demand, we'll train them. Yeah.
But then whether or not the insurance will cover people that are outside of England and Wales, we have to double check that side. Maybe that's
find a way.
Maybe that's something that CJ can find out for us at a later date.
Yeah, there's always a way. There's always more than one way to skin a cat.
Inska, you said what's the cost? Underneath, Norrie's put £60 for the day without lunch and £65 with lunch for the day. Now, that doesn't include your bed and breakfast if you're travelling over, or your hotel cost. It doesn't include your refreshments except for lunch on the day. So £65 is the cost for the pure training on its own with the paperwork. Is that correct, Steve? They don't have to pay extra for their books?
No. The course notes are included.
Yeah, we do supply drinks throughout the day, as well as snacks like biscuits, fruit, sweets, that sort of thing. We do put out on the tables for people, and we do supply pads and pens as well.
Excellent, thank you very much. Jackie Tonks has said, correct about the online GDPR, I'm guessing it's about. She had the issue come up for the gap theory and the police said it's not relevant for the online ones. So yeah, you've spoken about Elaine, and that's it. I think that's it for questions. Throw it open if anybody wants to ask a question out loud. Do you want to put your hand up on your little emoji and I'll come to you? No.
As I said, I've tried to make the training. I haven't gone into detail about the content of the training because there's no need to at this stage. But my overriding sort of desire is to clear the backlog and give people the opportunity which they've been clamoring for so long.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great weekend. No other questions. Norrie, is there anything further you'd like to say?
No. I'm done.
Oh, we do have
You're
one
done.
raised hand.
Sorry, who's that speaking?
And we do have one raised hand.
Oh, where's the raised hand? Oh, Kieran. Do you want to unmute, Kieran?
Thanks. I take it, Steve, that part of the on-site investigation where the mentoring will take place is going to be some sort of vigil or something like that, which would presumably be supervised, hence the mentoring.
It will be supervised, and it will be as I think as the wording says, it will be a simulated investigation.
Simulated.
Yeah.
Right. So there won't. Would there be simulated phenomena?
No.
No. Okay.
Because
Fine.
Because to train an investigator, you actually don't need a haunted building or a real phenomena, because what you are teaching people are the skills required to investigate. What you can't predict, even on a live investigation, is that anything will happen. But the practice is still the same, whether anything happens or not. So we don't actually require a location to be haunted or, a UFO hotspot or the middle of Loch Ness, or to have any phenomena associated with it at all, because what we're teaching people and what people will be practicing are the skills that are required.
Thanks. It's just that I had this terrible kind of vision of sitting in a darkened room waiting for something to happen, and then nothing does, and therefore I hand in more or less a blank sheet of paper as my observations, other than a couple of people coughing or something, which, is probably because of people in the next room or something like that.
Well, you'll get used to it, Kieran.
Sorry?
You'll get used to it.
I'll get used to it, yeah. Oh, I've been used to doing these things in the past.
I'm not getting used to it doing the way that Steve likes doing it.
As Greg just alluded to, there is never such a thing as a blank form. There can't be unless you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's pleasing to know. Thanks.
It's how we
I suggest if you want to have activity, invite Rachel Hayward, because she seems to make the place go crazy when she turns up. So she'll be guaranteed to have something happen when she's around. Is that not right, Rachel?
I wouldn't go that far, Caroline.
Yeah, there's known phenomena
Just
when
the
Rachel's
right
around.
location. That's all it was. Just the right location at the right time.
Yeah, it was good. Very good. So Kieran, you've got no more questions. Has anybody else got any more questions? No. CJ, are you back in the room? He's not. Okay, Steve, we'll give it back to, oh, hang on, here he is.
Here he is, the man with the hat.
Cheers, Steve.
So I think that covered it all very well. Thank you very much, Steve. And thanks to everyone for attending tonight. I think we've gone all the way through the questions. Thanks to Caroline for handling those. And I think we're all looking forward to seeing the training in place and getting going again. Oh, and good evening, Cuddles. I see you've decided to come and visit us. So at least one of my cats bothered to make the effort tonight. Well, it's been great to see you all. Hopefully you'll hear about the website within the next 24 hours, or if not, this week, sometime. And sorry about that. I was distracted by just discovering my landlady's coming to visit. So wishing you all well. And is there any other further business before we leave for tonight? Oh, who's next week? Claire, are you there? You do
Yeah,
this?
it's Keith Linder from the Bothell Hell House. Keith, as you may know, has written a number of books on the poltergeist experiences he had in upstate Washington. And he's now been out of the house for 6 years. And he's going to come back and tell us, sort of looking back, what's going on with the house and how he feels now that he's been out of the house. So it should be a really good one.
He's got some material he wants us to have a look at before the webinar, hasn't he?
Yeah, I will send that to people.
Right, brilliant. So we'll get that sent out with the webinar link for next week.
Yeah.
So you have a chance to, if you haven't read any of his books, you'll have a chance to see some of the evidence and view some of the videos and stuff straightforward.
Yeah, and if you go on Amazon, if you've got Amazon Kindle or Kindle Unlimited, whatever, you can download all of his books for free, basically.
Right.
So don't worry about buying the hardbacks. Just get the online edition. You can read them all.
So next week is Keith Linder. Who's the week after that? Do we know yet?
Can I just give a shout out to, we have a participant who I'd just like to say hi to.
Oh, yeah.
Tomoyasu. Hi.
All the way from Japan. Are they still here?
Joining us all the way from Japan tonight.
And are they? Here they are.
Hello, hello.
Hi there.
Say, okay. I'm English a little. Okay.
That's fine.
Sorry, thank you.
I hope that you
Okay.
some of it.
Thank you. It was lovely to see you all the way from Japan tonight. Is this a friend of yours, Steve? Somebody who's read your books, yeah?
Someone who's read the books, yeah. And
fantastic. Nice to meet you.
I took my recommendation to participate.
Well, we hope to see you again next week. Come and join us and see you next week.
Yeah, the following week is Neil Nixon. ITV News versus Galactic Command.
Oh, I know what that's about. Okay, that's quite an interesting story. All right, then. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to Steve for a superb night and for a great presentation.
Don't forget to send me the money.
Oh, no, you were $5. Yes. All right, take care then. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.